At your service. Can I assist you? Heading out.
The best defense is a good offense. Go out and capture all the landing locations. The enemy will be unable to send in reinforcements and will fall to our greater numbers.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Star Wars Empire at War, the Imperial campaign, where today we're doing several things this mission. The key one is taking Kuat. However, we are here on Coruscant, where the rebels have once again launched a ground invasion after destroying the station currently the station that was supposed to be sitting over Coruscant. As you can see, I'm kind of darting around and trying to find all of the build pads so that I can set up anti-aircraft guns on all of them, with the idea being that if the enemy were to try and send any bombers overhead, they'd have a hard time actually hitting anything.
Advancing.
This is all kind of to do. Ooh, ow. Tea is hot. I got a cup of tea sitting next to me, and I just grabbed the actual mug itself instead of the handle, because I'm used to drinks being kind of lukewarm. But yeah, no. So we've got these artillery tanks, which I had built, I think, either in the started building in the previous. Yes, no, we used them in the previous episode when we were defending one of the worlds near Sullust. Rather.
On my way. Right away.
And they're quite good for denying the enemy.
All right.
Denying the enemy kind of access to the map. Of course, unfortunately, they're not a garrison unit, so I do have to be rather careful with them, unlike everything else that we have access to, which I can kind of just constantly throw away.
Ready for command.
As you can see, I have got all of the stormtroopers sitting kind of on the landing pad that the rebels are trying to use to, attack the Coruscant itself.
Affirmative, sir.
They're all taking cover, and they're kind of sitting there where they can hold the hold the rebels there as these SPMATs pound the
unit destroyed.
Pound the rebel light tanks. I think they're the T2Bs versus what other things that the Rebel Alliance gets. But I am kind of just darting around the map at the moment, trying to find all of the I think they're build pads. Yeah, trying to find all the build pads so that I can build anti-aircraft weapons on them. And because I noticed that we've done significant damage to the enemy, I tried pushing forward with my infantry, only to discover that the rebels had launched a bombing run that had gone through the anti-aircraft the line of anti-aircraft guns that I spent so long setting up at the start of this episode. Well, not so long setting up at the start, as if it took 10 minutes to do. This is only 5 minutes into it, 4.5 minutes rather, into the episode. Which isn't. I think I ended up doing this one, 2 or 3 times, because the previous 2 times where I had recorded this, the rebels had completely annihilated the artillery tanks that I had deployed, which was, of course, unfortunate.
I'm here. I copy.
However,
moving out.
With the help of the artillery tanks kind of sitting there pounding the Rebel Alliance as they kind of try and land more and more troops, I've been able to push my vehicles and infantry,
Reporting.
particularly the
Heading
garrisoned ones, into the enemy
Let's move out.
reinforcement point so that
Let's
we
go.
can capture it, which wins us this battle. So, of course, we took significant damage there. So what I decided to do is
Construction complete.
move a defensive fleet to
Artillery
Coruscant
online.
in the hopes of maybe limiting the enemy's movement. And at the moment, I think we're just looking at what we can do to further secure planets like Solist. So
Awaiting your orders.
the enemy does attack
Artillery online.
this, unfortunately, and they do it a couple of times, though it's
Building
not
started.
too much.
The ground bases are the backbone of our defenses. We need to increase their number if we are to teach the rebellion that their cause is a losing proposition.
So as I was saying, it's not too much of an issue that the Rebel Alliance have tried to attack
You want any help?
this once again. It is something that they do try a number of times,
On the
but of
move.
course, thanks to superior numbers,
Going there now.
particularly
All right.
superior stormtrooper numbers,
Turret constructing.
we are able to win this battle fairly quickly.
Prepare for assignment.
Unit destroyed.
The
Come on, man, this way.
in the process of recording this episode, I discovered that there goes another hover tank, unfortunately.
Artillery online.
But that's what he was there for. He was to charge in and immediately start causing damage. The plan for this, or what I ended up figuring out for this episode, after we take, I think it's after we retake the space over Biss, and we
Our base is under
take
attack.
Kuat, which we'll get to when we get to, in terms of this episode. But
to fire.
what I figured out was that if we take a series of key planets around, I believe it's Geonosis, Iridium, and it might be Bespin is the other world that's quite important to hold. We can corner the Rebel Alliance into a very small area and stop them from this constantly attacking us as we try to complete other missions. We don't even have to take the ground,
Squad, move out.
the planet itself. We just need to hold the orbit
Squad, advance.
around
All right, man. Unit
each of those
destroyed.
worlds. Of course, we already control Geonosis,
Ready.
and Bespin is a space combat only map.
Reporting.
So those two, it's already fairly well sorted. The real one will be taking Iridium and securing it, as well as Corellia. That's the other world.
Open fire.
I am kind of just ignoring what's going on in terms of the gameplay because it's very similar to what happened, I think, in the previous episode where the Rebel Alliance attacked Biss. As you can see, knocked out their last vehicles.
Yes, sir.
Unfortunately, they managed to knock out one of our artillery tanks.
Cruiser reporting. Navigating to enemy is approaching.
Let's show these dissidents who rules this galaxy. Remove their influence from the system by destroying all their defenses.
So here we are over in the orbit of Biss after successfully repelling the Rebel Alliance's attack from the surface itself. This is a fairly easy mission. It's over kind of really quickly, just because we have superior numbers, and once the tanks of the Corellian Corvette there went down, it was really just a matter of
Moving into position.
knocking out the Y-Wings, which fell fairly quickly, all things considered. Probably due to them getting right in the midst of the fleet that we have there. Moving on,
Online.
Sensors are reporting that there is a hostile presence surrounding the planet. Lay waste to any forces that oppose the Empire.
Ties reporting in.
So here we are over, what are we, Kuat. Once again, here we are finally over Kuat. I think it was a couple of episodes ago that I said that we were going to actually attack Kuat and take it for the Empire. It's unfortunate that it took that long and a number of things. I am cutting out a few more battles, simply because some of them are just like, it's, you know, you just throw the ships in and then the job's done. Here, as you can see, I'm setting up my fleet just past the two space stations, the two defense platforms, rather. That's what they are. Those are the defense platforms. And the broadside cruisers are moving into a position where they can start firing upon the rebels' space station. This battle is over really quickly. It, in the end, only took about 2 minutes, about 2.5 minutes. And, of course, most of that was destroying the space station. Because, of course, once the space station's gone down, really it takes a miracle to survive afterwards, especially if the enemy has got superior numbers and everything. But yeah, as you can see, their space station's just about fallen, so I'm switching fire from the space station to the defense platforms on either side of the station itself, as I move my heavier starships, the two Victory 2 class and Acclamator 2 assault ship into a position where they can fire on both the space station and the Corellian corvette that you can see is currently dealing a lot of damage to our starfighters, but they don't survive for long, and we have Kuat's.
Yes, Commander. Let's move out.
Choose your reinforcements.
That is the system.
At maximum unit.
This planet is at risk of falling into the hands of the rebels. Mount a defense that will send them crawling back into their holes.
So, with the space over Kuat secured, we are now moving on to the actual land battle, where we are landing on Kuat's surface, obviously, and wresting it from the control of the Rebel Alliance. I am very...
Yes, sir.
Part of me is very aggressive when I initially start out, and I send the ATSTs that we have with us forward to knock out the initial group of rebel soldiers as we start landing our infantry and Lord Vader, who is commanding this particular invasion. And of course, the Rebel Alliance, I believe, at this point it's about 2 or 3 days since I actually recorded the video itself. But if I remember correctly, they have 3 light factories, which means that we have to be incredibly careful about how we bring in our landing forces and how aggressive we are. So as you can see, I've dropped a commander and a couple of artillery units down on our initial landing zone, and on this secondary landing zone I've dropped in a couple of, I believe it's stormtrooper companies, so a pair of stormtrooper platoons. As you can see, the commander there is moving to secure some of the build pads. Now, the useful thing about heroes actually is that you can be very aggressive with them for very little kind of like loss on your half, on the half of on a loss in terms of like as a player. However, I was
Formation now.
very slow to react
Lead the way.
in certain aspects. I could have very well sent our artillery tanks forward with the initial wave of stormtroopers if I had actually thought about it, and that probably would have meant that we could have gotten through this battle without sacrificing Lord Vader. However, I probably could have also just pulled Vader back more often and let him heal up, but I didn't, and it kind of results in his in him falling several times.
What?
As you can see, I'm using Lord Vader to scout ahead, and he's spotting for the bombers that are coming in and kind of distracting the, I believe it's the T2B tanks. I don't know if I actually hover over any of them long enough to confirm or deny that particular fact. But yeah, as you can see, that's one of the 3 light vehicle factories destroyed. In this battle, again, like it takes a lot longer than it probably should have. I could very well have done it in about half the time that it actually takes. At this point, I think it's about 8 minutes or so that it takes for this battle. But that's because I leave our artillery tanks behind, and they're actually quite effective at destroying things like the T2B. Yeah, so those are T2B tanks, and I guess like it makes sense. Like, they have the ability to just hunt down the enemy. As you can see, I left it maybe a bit too late to pull Vader out, and he ends up taking enough damage that he falls, despite me trying to pull him out, which is unfortunate, of course, but I mean, he's a hero, so he'll respawn when he has the opportunity.
Yes, sir. I'm en route.
I am using the commander, I think, to scout more of the territory, more of the initial island that you land on when you're attacking Kuat in the original game.
Roger that.
In the hopes of potentially finding a better, finding either more landing, more build pads, or potentially securing like a flank from the enemy coming in behind. As you could see, I have now started moving the artillery vehicles forward, but it is fairly...
Bombing run available.
I want to say that it's a lot later than I probably should have done it.
Ready for orders.
We're dropping in a second bombing run on the second of the 3 light factory buildings.
There they are.
And I do believe it clears out some of the T2B tanks that are just sitting there. It's actually quite amusing. Usually you would want like a well-balanced attack force, but sometimes really all you need is just lots of stormtroopers.
Copy.
You know, maybe with some heavy artillery support.
Turret constructing.
As you can see, I'm rebuilding those anti-aircraft guns because sometimes really you just need more. And I figured if I get these anti-aircraft guns built now while we're attacking Kuat, we won't have to worry so much about them later on, particularly when we might not have the resources to do so.
Order acknowledged.
We're moving the SPMATs forward a little bit further, just in the hopes that we can get them closer to the main fight where they can deal even more damage. As you can see, they are making real quick work of the T2B tanks that are just sitting there. Unfortunately, they don't seem particularly interested in shooting the one that's right up in their grill, but that's alright because the large number of stormtroopers quickly makes
Spreading out.
quickly deals with that,
Target.
and then we just get all the stormtroopers to start firing on the factory.
Men, take cover.
Because you know, sometimes with
Over there.
the number of the large number of infantry, it's not particularly difficult to wipe out the enemy. And as you can see, our artillery vehicles are firing, and they annihilate the infantry. So with Kuat secured, I think I mentioned this earlier in the episode. I kind of started considering, well, how do we stop the rebellion from attacking us further? They've got multiple worlds that are kind of just in amongst the ones that we have, and one of the things that I kind of looked at was securing planets like Corellia, Iridio, and I think it was Bespin. I do mention this earlier in the video, but as you can see, Corellia is like right in the middle of everything. And even if all I do is secure the space over these worlds, it's a lot more, it denies the enemy a lot more access to, like, it stops them from being able to move their troops around nearly as well as they could otherwise. Ooh, sorry, I got something in my throat there.
On my way.
As you can see, I'm pulling my main assault force back so that they can quickly replenish and increase their numbers, with the hope that, you know, maybe, just maybe, we'll have enough troops that we can attack elsewhere.
Artillery online.
Yeah. So there's not really a lot to talk about. I believe the next part of this, so in the next episode, we will move on to beginning construction. I think it will be Kessel that we go for. As you can see, I make a bit of a mistake, and this ends up losing this particular world here, simply because, well, there wasn't any way to I didn't have a space fleet to stop any raiding parties from getting through, particularly on some of the forward worlds. Coruscant, I think, is where they go through, which is a little bit of an issue that I needed to solve at some point, but didn't realize until they attacked. I think it's Edgar Ray. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Rebel forces approaching.
Ebergaradio?
Removing their land bases in the area would go a long way in helping us keep the rebels out of our space. See to it.
Attacking.
So, unfortunately, we did lose this world. I might take another stab at pronouncing it. What is it? Ebergaradio Ray? Maybe. Some of these worlds, they've got interesting name pronunciations. However, so we are here with our main invasion force, which consists of mostly just stormtroopers. Because, you know, as I've discovered in previous episodes, sometimes it's just easier to have like a massive army of stormtroopers that you just drop in and annihilate everything with. This battle ends up taking 8 minutes simply because all I had access to was these 4 stormtrooper companies, because I couldn't really push out from the landing zone. I spent a lot of time just sitting here trying to stop the rebels from destroying all of my stuff. Because of course, if they could control this world, they had another world kind of within the sphere of Imperial space that they could then go out and attack other territories of ours. The plan for the next episode, I feel like this is probably a good time to get this out of the way, because really this battle is probably didn't need to show it, but I thought it would be nice to leave it in.
Fire at will.
The plan for the next episode will be definitely to take Mon Calamari now that we have access to, like, we can now launch an invasion of it. We may, prior to attacking Mon Calamari, attack Kessel, but what I'll do in between episodes is I'll go through and I'll put fleets in orbit around Bespin, Iridiu and Corellia, just so that the rebellion can't continue attacking as freely as they have been, with the, of course, the obvious plan being that, you know, at some stage we can then launch land invasions of those worlds, potentially taking more territory from them and securing it for the use of the Great Empire. Here I'm keeping a close eye on the population cap, because as soon as we dropped down one, I was wanting to bring in, I think I briefly considered bringing in an ATSD, but what I end up doing is I end up dropping in more stormtroopers, and we almost had that tank, but he gets away in the end, and they both start retreating. So what I do is I start advancing forward. As you can see, we lose a lot of stormtroopers just trying to get out of the landing zone. But sometimes it be like that, you know, you try your hardest and you
choose your reinforcements.
Yeah, so we've dropped down another 3. Okay. Just because we lost, I think, key companies or key platoons or something. So I drop in more stormtroopers, just because at this point I was like, well, if we can get more stormtroopers on the field, we can, you know, push forward, we can secure this particular landing zone, and then we can advance further with the hopes of potentially breaking out and capturing the other other reinforcement point, so that we can land even more troops. Because at this point I didn't know if the rebels had built any base structures, or if they had long enough to build any base structures. That would have required us to advance a lot further and faster to deal with. But as you can see, we're kind of pushing forward very slowly. And once again, I'm building those defensive structures behind as we advance, just so that we can get it all sorted.
Squad, advance.
We're going to continue advancing. There is unfortunately an anti-infantry turret here, and I think that's what the T2B tanks were kind of trying to bait me towards. But I also, as I advanced, was trying to see if I could find any of the other local human structures, with the hopes being that I can destroy those structures at, like, the one in the initial landing zone and the one that you've just spotted up there. But the anti-infantry turret, as I mentioned earlier, is sitting there, and it kind of stops us from advancing any further. So I decided, okay, we'll just sit here, we'll build this this small structure, the anti-vehicle turret. We'll destroy this structure and kind of ignore the T2B tanks, because they're not doing a terrible amount of damage. I mean, they are doing some damage, but we've got more stormtroopers. We've always got more stormtroopers. So really it's just a matter of sitting here and waiting for things to get sorted. As you can see, another T2B tank has been destroyed. One of the things that I think I needed to consider, or one of the things that I considered while recording this, was potentially adding to the ground invasion force a couple of Acclimator class assault ships, just so that we have access to bombing runs, because bombing runs can be quite useful, particularly in situations like these where, you know, we kind of need a way to push out a little bit faster, a little bit more effectively. but as you can see, we've kind of got a handle on it, and as long as we've got stormtroopers, it's really not too much of an issue.
Roger that.
I do look at which team's got the least health, and I send them towards the anti-infantry turret,
Open fire.
just to sacrifice them so that we can then bring in
Choose your
a
reinforcements.
ATSD team.
At maximum unit capacity.
As you can see, we're doing that there, because again, didn't know if they had any base structures.
Turret.
I believe that's all for this episode. If you're all enjoying this, make sure that you hit that like button,
Ready to
you
go.
comment down below. If you have any ideas for suggestions,
This
add
way.
them to the comments as well. If you think you've got friends who might enjoy this as well, make sure you share it with them. And yeah,
Enemy
keep
spotted.
being safe, everyone. Keep being awesome. I'll see you around.
Fire for maximum effect. On my way.
The enemy has been defeated.
Hostiles. Attack.